Welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. The Pharmacy Leaders Podcast is a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, with interviews and advice on building your professional network, brand, and a purposeful second income from students, residents, and innovative professionals.
Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast. I'm doing some editing on some cover letters and just really enjoying it. I have an undergraduate English major, and I was going to get a PhD sort of in English, but it ended up getting a master's in computers. But I actually enjoy doing this stuff. It just brings me great satisfaction. So I wanted to give you my top 10 mistakes that Residency and its letter of interest writers write. And I know that there's a difference between a letter of interest, which is for residency, and a cover letter and all that stuff. But really, all you're trying to do is tell a story, make a point, get an interview. That's it. So keep the goal in mind. But let me give you my top 10 mistakes that hopefully you won't make. And trust me on these. I've been doing this for a long time, I don't think that you really understand how many people you compete against unless you do something, and I recommend that you do this. So if you have a printer, I would take 60 pages out of that printer and put them on the floor and go 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 10, and then make 6 rows. Now you can see what it's like to be on the other side. I'm looking at 60 residency applications, and these are for the, certainly the best sites. And I'm trying to figure out which ones are best for the couple of spots that we have. And immediately you can kind of see that even if your cover letter of intent is good, it isn't great. And there's going to be a lot of good ones in there. What you want is something that just pops and says, wow, this person really matches with us. Because they're probably just going to take the top row. They're just going to take 10 or so, maybe a dozen, and they're going to bring them in for an interview. And you just want to make sure that you're in the top row. After that, it's fit. That's it. So you're just trying to get in that top row, and here are 10 ways to make sure that you don't get in the top row. And I want to make sure that you avoid them. First thing, you've written more than one page. No, you should have a one-page letter. And I know you're saying, no, you don't understand, but I've accomplished so much. Well, many of the people in that pile have accomplished so much. What you want to do is articulate the most important accomplishments that you've made, and you want to make sure that you do that succinctly. They have 60 to read, and that's just the cover letter. So even if they took a minute for each one, that's an hour of just reading cover letters. And by the 5th one, they have no idea which was it that person in the first cover letter that was from this state, and so don't make it more than one page. One page articulates clearly that you can be concise, that you're not going to overly go over the things that you've done, but you're going to do it very well. So when students ask me to review their cover letter, I actually ask them to write a page and a half, and I'll cut it to one because it's really tough to do. Let me give you an example. Today I'm trying to rehang these curtains, and it's just not something I do very often. So I had to, go get the screws and go get the fasteners and all that stuff, and it took me a lot of time to do it, and I'm still not going to do as good a job as somebody who had the drill and had all the materials can do it really quickly. As somebody who's been doing this for a long time, who taught English composition, I can do this very quickly, and I can make a 1.5 page into one page. And the more important thing about the one page is that by forcing you to make every word count, you will make every word count. That way the person reading it is going to be continually engaged through the whole thing. It's much less likely that you're going to lose them because it's just going to get kind of boring, and I'll talk about some of those generalities later, than if you just have a page. The other thing is that they're excited that the finish line is near with yours. So if they have one, then there's, okay, well, I've got my second paragraph coming up and I'm almost done. And that's exciting. The other thing is that if you don't write one page, they may only commit to reading one page. So if you put the most important stuff at the end, that may never get read. So one page, that's the limit. Don't make that mistake. Number 2, don't use big words when small words will do. There's a misconception that you have to speak at a certain level, and I didn't mention this in my errors, and you have to speak in the passive voice. And let me give you an example. Let's see. I have so much trouble talking in the passive voice. Let me try to do it in the active voice and then change it. So our leadership team worked very hard to provide 300 immunizations at our last event. Okay. At our last event, 300 immunizations were provided for the patients. Okay, so that were provided is passive voice, and if you use that over and over again, it's just like, oh my gosh, there's no action in there. Okay, we immunized. That's it. That's active voice. Okay, use the words that are appropriate, but don't use big words when you don't have to. There's a great tool called Style Writer. It's pretty expensive, but that can help you make things concise. But use the right word. Don't use big words unintentionally. Number 3, you talk about what you're going to get out of it and how they are great for you. They are great for you. So let's kind of translate this to dating, and imagine that you're going up to somebody and saying, "Oh my gosh, I just wanted to tell you that you are the perfect person for me, and I wanted to tell you why. I've been looking for somebody who is exactly your height, has your hair color, and likes to do the things that I like to do. You like to run, I like to run. You like to travel here, I like to travel there. You're from here, I'm from there." Don't. Just say what you want to talk about is how you can help them. Okay, so it's, yeah, I really like running. Do you think you want to go and go for a run together? I always like going for a run together instead of a run with just a single person. It's always nice to have somebody to talk to and things like that. And so what you're talking about is value to the other person. So focused on value to the other person really at least 3/4 of the time. Okay? And you have to have somebody else just say, "Hey, can you just look at any places here that I'm talking about me instead of them?" Number 4, don't tell Harvard that Harvard is awesome. Okay? I don't even know if there's a Harvard pharmacy residency. I'm sure there probably is. But they know they're awesome. And right now, they're feeling like they wish they weren't awesome. Because if you're awesome, you get 60 or 70 or 80 or 100 applications for a couple of spots. You're kind of wishing, yeah, I really wish we had 5 applications for one spot so that they could have a manageable number. Don't tell them they're awesome. They know they're awesome. You don't have to tell them that. What you want to do is you want to articulate clearly that they are a top institution and that these are the things that you've done to make yourself a top applicant. Okay? And, president of a chapter, those types of things. So use evidence. Don't just say, "Hey, Harvard, you're awesome." Don't make generalizations, especially about the profession. I want to lead the profession as we're moving towards provider status and such and such. Okay, great. Okay, what they want to hear is, I went to legislative day and I talked to a legislator and this is what we talked about. Okay, be detailed. Don't work in generalizations. Generalizations are boring and forgettable. Number 6, contact information. Many people are going to write, and if you have any questions, feel free, don't hesitate to contact me. Okay. But the thing is that all you put on there was a mailing address. Do you want them to mail you a request for that more information? Right. So make sure email address, that your phone number, and maybe even your forecast ID is on there to make it so easy for them to contact you if they have a question. I don't know if they will, but they might. Number 7, using non-standard fonts and margins. ASHP says use 12 point Times New Roman, 14 point for the headings, 1-inch margins. So do that. You're not going to be prettier. Your cover letter will not be prettier than another cover letter. It should also match the same formatting as your CV, just so they kind of work together as a team. I understand how you might think that, oh, this font is really cool. I don't know about that. Now, the thing with Times New Roman, and why I'm kind of wondering about it, is that there's fonts that you want to use for somebody that's going to read a piece of paper. And there are fonts that you want to use for those that are going to read something on a screen. Times New Roman has serifs. Okay, so serifs make it really easy to read in one way, and non-serifs make it really easy to read in the other way. So Times New Roman is good. If ASHP says Times New Roman, then they must have thought this through at how people actually read it. But really, the font really should be dictated by if the person is going to read it online or if the person is going to read it as a piece of paper. But you don't use non-standard fonts. Number 8, a person felt they didn't need to have somebody read their work and they lost objectivity. What's going to happen is that you're going to work on this over and over and over again, and you're going to think you are awesome sauce. The average number of corrections, and I hate to not use the word corrections, recommendations that I make with a residency cover letter is 87. And you're like, there's no way. There's no way you can make 87 changes to my cover letter. I have worked on it for hours, days, weeks, months, years. No. When you give a cover letter to, let me look at it this way. Let's say, you look at a patient and you say, okay, well, how are they doing? Okay. And let's say this is a pediatric patient or this is a NICU patient. Okay. And you look at the patient and you describe them. Now, when you have a NICU pharmacist describe that patient, all of a sudden there's going to be all of these different things that you weren't thinking of that weren't there. The same thing happens when you give a residency cover letter to an English major or to somebody that has, extensive experience editing. I've been editing for a decade. It will look like we have absolutely destroyed your paper. It will look, all the red marks and things like that, like you're just got this nightmare that now you're back in 6th grade English class. It's just that you haven't been doing it as long as we have. You don't have 10,000 hours of editing, if you want to use that reference. You want to have someone else read your work, not only for the corrections and proofreading, but just to get, what do they feel? So there's someone like me who is a lot less on the feeling side, who's just very forensic and like, this is what needs to be in there and this is what it needs to look like. And I don't mean to go East Coast on this, but this is better the way that I showed you, And there's other people that will read it and go, yeah, it kind of makes you sound like a jerk. Kind of makes you sound conceited. You're like, really? Yeah, that's just the feeling I get. Why? Just get that feeling. So you want to have somebody that's really intuitive, like my wife could look at something and just say, yeah, this is the feeling I get from it. And I'll look at it and I'll say, oh, well, these words can contribute to that kind of feeling. So have at least 2 people read it. One that's very intuitive that will tell you, this is how I feel after I've read it. And then somebody that's just going to just grind it and just make it amazing. Make it so that it's not only in the top, that top group, but, there are tears flowing, from the residency director going, oh my gosh, I will be crushed if this person is not a resident with us next year. And then number 9, if evidence doesn't follow the claim, you have just made a claim. Okay, I'm a leader. Okie dokie. How are you a leader? What have you done? I've shown leadership. I believe I've shown leadership through, and then what have you done? I don't mean to belittle it by saying evidence follows claim, but evidence follows claim. And you want evidence because evidence begs details, and details make it interesting. These stories that you're writing are what's going to make that residency director's day in reading these. And what you're really trying to do is convey what you've done in such a way that they're like, man, I really want to get to know this person. I can't wait to the interview, And that happens. You're like, no way, it's just a piece of paper. No, you're reading the story like, oh my gosh, you did? Oh, I want to hear more about that. Oh my God, how many people did you help? Where did you help them? You did. Whoa, that is, it's not, I want to advance pharmacy through providing help for the underserved. It's, I have helped the underserved in this capacity, whatever it is. So make sure evidence follows the claim. And number 10, completely self-serving, but if you didn't check out our 100-strong residency interview questions, answers, and rationales, the ebook that we've got out there on Amazon and Kindle, I just recommend that, now that I'm looking at these, really a cover letter in many ways is answering interview questions before they're asked. And you're answering the questions of who am I, why are we a good match for each other in the residency, how to do it with humility, and all of those things. So definitely check that out. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed these 10 points. I hate to say mistakes, but these are readily correctable. And if you consider yourself and you want to be in that top 10 out of the 60, you're going to have to do a lot of work. And I know that you're sitting there like, but I have APPEs, but I only have a couple of days, but I have 12 applications. What you did in pharmacy school, unfortunately, they don't focus on something as important as this. This honestly should be a full credit class where it's not career exploration. It's how do I articulate what I want in a single page, and how do I articulate to other people why they should help me by letting me be in their residency. And it just kind of breaks my heart that, you've focused on all of these other things, but then it kind of comes down to crunch time and you're just doing this in a couple of days, couple of weeks, when really this should have been a longitudinal project that, you're just kind of polishing up. But anyway, hope these help. Honestly, I'd use it as a checklist. Just go one at a time. Just like, oh, yeah, I made it more than one page. Let's cut it down. Number 2, let's get the big words out where I can put the little ones in. Number 3, talk about what they're going to get from me, what value I add. Number 4, I didn't tell Harvard. They're awesome sauce. Number 5, I made sure to detail statements rather than generalize them. Number 6, my contact information is in the document. Number 7, these are standard fonts and margins, 12 point, 1 inch. Number 8, I did have other people read my work. Number 9, evidence always followed any claim I've made. And number 10, I checked out Brandon and Tony's book. So anyway, good luck. If you have questions, as always, contact me on Facebook, TonyFarmD1, or email me aagara@dmac.edu.
Support for this episode comes from the audiobook Memorizing Pharmacology, a relaxed approach. With over 9,000 sales in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, it's the go-to resource to ease the pharmacology challenge. Available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon.com, in print, ebook, and audiobook. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. Be sure to share the show with the hashtag #PharmacyLeaders.